The two communications channels on Islington CS have an inbuilt newsletter functionality, which means you can select a group of articles from either channel and then send those articles as an email newsletter to a defined list of users. Now, it's important you understand how that works before you create a newsletter. With some other systems, you create a newsletter and then select a predefined distribution list to send that newsletter to. It doesn't work like that on Islington CS. Instead, it uses a combination of the content group permissions and job role permissions. You'll remember when you create content, like an article, you add that content to a specific folder. That folder is likely to have permissions set to it, so that only users from establishments with certain content group permissions can access it, and then certain users with job role permissions can access it. When you create a newsletter, you ask the system to search for a combination of articles that meet those content group and job role permissions, and it will send it to all users that match those same permissions. So, for example, you could create a newsletter and say, I want it to go to all LBI schools and to all head teachers. LBI school is a content group permission, so it will find all articles that have that content group permission, and then only to those users who have the job role head teacher. So to create a newsletter, firstly select the channel in which you want to send the newsletter from. So this is either schools or early years. Make sure you're here first and don't try and select Add Newsletter from the main homepage. So in schools, and then select Add Newsletter, and then you firstly get this these three drop downs, which are the permissions that we just talked about. So firstly, select your job roles. So in this example, I'm just going to do a newsletter to all head teachers, and then content groups, and I'm going to select LBI school. I can then restrict content types to just articles, or just leave it to return everything, but again I'm just going to select articles and then click filter. The results you get are then a list of all articles that meet those content group and job role restrictions that we set up here. But it's important at this point to know that if you selected a combination of multiple job roles, you may get results here, but if an individual article is in a folder where that particular job role doesn't have permission to access it, it's likely to crash. So just make sure that you're selecting a job role and content group permission structure that matches the permissions set for the articles that you want to include. So I'm just going to select this one example here, and then click Create Newsletter. You'll then get a list of the items. I've just got one here. If I had multiple items, I could drag the order by clicking on this cross and moving them up and down, and then click Create Table of Contents if you want a table of contents at the top of your newsletter. When I click Next, I now get a preview of that newsletter, and because I'm in the Schools channel, it uses the Schools template. If I was in the Early Years channel, this would look slightly different, and this logo would be the Bright Star Islington logo. I can put the title here, so I'm just going to write Test Bulletin, and then the rest of it you can just check, and you can amend the text if you want to remove parts of it or add text. You can do any of that to the preview here. This newsletter title will automatically be replaced by whatever you've put up here in the title box. And then when you're ready, you can then click Save. You'll see a preview of the newsletter. And if you want to make further changes, click Edit to go back to the editor screen. And then when you're ready, click Newsletter. You can send yourself a test, or if you click View Recipients and Submit, It will then show you all the users that meet the content group and job role permissions that we selected at the start of the process, and at the bottom of the page you can click Send Newsletter.